A pretty horrible incident took place a couple of days ago as Trinidad and Tobago's Coast Guard killed a Venezuelan 9-month-old baby and shot her mother as they were trying to enter the Caribbean nation in a boat with other Venezuelan migrants. This situation created a massive controversy that once again shows the brutal treatment that Venezuelan migrants and refugees receive by Trinidad's authorities. This situation was actually so controversial that actually got to the point where Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Keith Rowley said in a statement, and I quoting him, "I express my deepest sympathy on my own behalf and of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to the unfortunate loss of life of the baby." He said this in a statement. Keith Rowley, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Right after his declarations, human rights activists have called for a thorough investigation of the incident, given the fact that we're talking about the most unspeakable act of violence that a migration authority could execute against a migrant. We're talking about the murder of a 9-month-old baby and the fact that his mother also got shot by the Coast Guard of Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, as you can imagine, Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro hasn't said anything about this situation. And he hasn't said absolutely anything because over the last few years, he has always denied the migrant crisis that Venezuela is experiencing, the exodus crisis that Venezuela is experiencing, the fact that 20% of the Venezuelan population decided to escape from their home country, given the fact that under the dictatorship of Nicolas Maduro, there has been a widespread crisis that has basically destroyed this once rich South American nation. So this is nothing more than a communication strategy. The fact that Nicolas Maduro hasn't said anything, not only about this situation, but also about many other similar cases where Venezuelan migrants and refugees have been wrongly treated in other countries, such as, for example, the case of Chile and Iquique, a situation that we have already explained on a previous episode here on Newsweek. Getting to this point, it is important to point out that 40,000 Venezuelans are currently living in this Caribbean nation, in Trinidad and Tobago. On the other hand, over 6 million of Venezuelans are in different countries around the world, representing the second biggest crisis in the whole planet. And well, this is really unfortunate, this is really horrible, because we have seen a lot of hypocrisy from the world on the Venezuelan migrant crisis, on the Venezuelan refugee crisis, because we need to remember that the first migrant and refugee crisis is the Syrian crisis. However, the world hasn't paid that much attention to the Venezuelan crisis in comparison to the Syrian. As a matter of fact, we only have to put as an example this latest situation in Trinidad and Tobago with the baby who got killed, because we need to compare this situation with the horrible situation of the Syrian child Alan Kurdi, who died in Turkey. We need to remember that situation and the whole controversy that this created, the incredible amount of solidarity that in a pretty justified manner this situation, this tragedy created not only in Turkey but also in Europe and everywhere around the world. This is not the case of Venezuela. And I will say that the only reason why no one is paying attention to the Venezuelan crisis is because this migrant and refugee crisis takes place mostly in Latin America, a region that not so many people around the world pay attention to. This is a region where the world powers doesn't pay that much attention. And in comparison with the Syrian migrant and refugee crisis, we need to remember that this particular crisis was mostly in Europe, in developed nations, being the reason why so many countries around the world pay a lot of attention to the Syrian crisis. But this is not what is taking place in Venezuela. The people around the world need to open their eyes on the Venezuelan situation. We're talking about the second biggest migrant and refugee crisis around the world. We're talking about 20% of a population that decided to flee their home country, and this is not exactly a country that is currently experiencing a war or any type of armed conflict, which makes everything worse, everything more incredible. However, it is quite unfortunate because, I repeat once again, the world and the world superpowers are not paying attention to the Venezuelan migrant crisis, and this could eventually create a regional crisis all around Latin America. Reporting from Medellin, Colombia, Luis Orozco, Newsweek.